You know that feeling, right? That sudden weird sensation when the world just starts to spin? It's dizziness, and we've all been there. But what if it's more than just a passing thing? Well, today we're going to dig into a study that uncovers a pretty startling link between that spinning feeling and the very real danger of a serious fall.
I mean, that feeling of unsteadiness when the room just kind of tilts on you and your balance is, well, it's just gone. It's so uncomfortable, so disorienting, and it can really hit you out of the blue. Most of the time we just try to shake it off, right? Just a momentary blip.
But what if that's a mistake? What if that brief moment of instability is actually your body's alarm bell, ringing loud and clear? A warning for a much, much bigger risk, one that could lead to things like broken bones, hospital visits, and injuries that could change your life. That's the big question we're looking at today.
All right, so let's frame the problem here. This isn't just about feeling a little bit woozy. The research we're looking at shows that dizziness is a major, major red flag for some pretty severe falls. And honestly, the numbers are kind of shocking.
Just look at this, a 12-fold increase. I mean, let that sink in. That's not a small number. That is a massive multiplier. So all of a sudden, dizziness goes from being a minor annoyance to a huge warning sign that we really need to pay attention to.
So to figure this out, researchers didn't just look at a few people. They went big. They analyzed this massive data set of insurance claims. And when I say massive, I mean it. They looked at the records of over 800,000 patients who had all recently been told they had dizziness. A sample size that big? Well, it gives their findings some serious credibility. And here's what they discovered. In just 1 year after that dizziness diagnosis, a full 7% of these people, we're talking over 60,000 human beings, had a fall that was bad enough to send them to a doctor or the hospital. This isn't a little trip and fall. These are serious, injurious falls. Okay, so we've got this clear and pretty scary problem, right? Dizziness leads to falls. So the next logical question for these researchers was, what can we do about it? Is there something out there that can actually protect these patients?
Yeah, this was their whole mission. Could they find some kind of intervention to break this dangerous chain reaction, to stop a simple diagnosis of dizziness from becoming a serious, medically treated fall down the road?
So how'd they do it? They used something called a cross-sectional study. And don't worry, it's not as complicated as it sounds. Basically, they just sifted through all those insurance claims to look for patterns, for connections, what scientists call associations between a specific treatment and whether or not someone ended up having a serious fall. And you know what? What they found was, well, it was nothing short of remarkable. It turns out there is a really powerful way to help, one that seems to make a world of difference. So what was the secret sauce? The one thing that really stood out? It was physical therapy. They started comparing what happened to patients who were sent to PT soon after their dizziness diagnosis versus those who weren't. And the results? They were dramatic. Okay, get ready for this. This is the big one. The headline number that just makes you do a double take. 86%. Let's really break down what that means.
This is the key. When patients started physical therapy within 3 months of being diagnosed with dizziness, their odds of having a serious fall over the next year were slashed by 86%. I mean, that's just a mind-blowing finding. And it makes perfect sense, right? This therapy directly tackles the problem with things like vestibular rehab, which retrains your inner ear, plus balance exercises and core strengthening.
And this chart just lays it all out, plain and simple. Look at that bar on the left. That's the baseline risk. Let's just call it 100. Now look over to the right. That's the risk for the folks who got physical therapy. It just plummets, all the way down to 14. You can literally see how huge the risk reduction is.
Okay, so this is great news. We have what looks like a super effective solution. Story's over, right? Well, not quite, because when the researchers looked at who was actually getting this therapy, they found a massive disconnect. Get this, even with this incredible benefit, only 6%, just 6 out of every 100 patients dealing with dizziness were actually referred to physical therapy. That means 94%, the vast majority, were missing out on this potentially life-saving care. That's just a huge, huge missed opportunity.
So this makes you wonder, right? Is everyone missing out equally, or are some groups more likely to be falling through these cracks? Well, the researchers dug into the demographics to find out.
And what they found were some really clear and frankly concerning patterns. The study found that females, patients in their 50s, and people with more complex health issues were all less likely to be sent to physical therapy. And that seems so backward, doesn't it? You'd think those might be the very people who could be at an even higher risk. The study doesn't say why, but that disparity is definitely there.
So, after all that, what do we do with this information? This is the part that really matters for you, for your parents, your friends. Let's boil it down to the key takeaways and how you can actually use them.
First off, timing is everything. As you can see here, the protective power of physical therapy is at its absolute strongest right at the beginning, in those first 3 months. The benefit is still strong at 6 months, and it even hangs around for a year, but this really drives home how important it is to get that referral and get started quick.
So here's the bottom line. On the left, you've got dizziness all by itself, which we now know is a major warning sign for a serious fall. But on the right, you add prompt physical therapy into the mix, and boom, the whole equation changes, and the odds shift dramatically in your favor.
Now, we have to be super clear about one scientific detail here. This is important. This study shows a really powerful link, or an association. It doesn't 100% prove that PT causes the drop in falls. To do that, you'd need a different type of study, a randomized clinical trial, which is exactly what the researchers say should happen next.
So what's the actionable advice here? It's really 2 simple things. First, change how you think about dizziness. Don't just brush it off. Recognize it for what it is, a serious risk factor. And second, use this knowledge to be your own advocate. If you or someone you care about is dealing with dizziness, talk to a doctor and specifically ask, hey, could physical therapy be a good option for me? And really, that's the thought we'll leave you with. When you remember that 94% of patients are currently missing out on this care, it really makes you wonder, could something as simple as having an informed conversation with a doctor be the first step in closing that gap, and maybe preventing thousands and thousands of debilitating injuries every single year?